While the world was winding down for the holidays, a series of legal and financial packages were delivered that absolutely ruined Christmas for Donald Trump. And no, it wasn't a lump of coal, it was something far worse, and he is reportedly furious. These weren't gifts. They were devastating rulings and filings that threaten his empire and his future. Here are the presents that sparked the fury. Gifts that, instead of bringing joy and celebration, have ignited a firestorm of controversy and legal drama that has captured the attention of the nation. Imagine waking up on a chilly December morning, the scent of pine and cinnamon in the air, and finding not just the usual wrapped boxes and cheerful stockings, but a set of gifts so extraordinary, so unprecedented, that they would send shockwaves through the highest echelons of power and business. These are not your typical holiday surprises. Instead, they are the kind of presents that come with strings attached, legal strings, financial strings, and the kind of consequences that can change the course of history for one of the most recognizable figures in the world. First up, the most jaw-dropping stocking stuffer of all, a $450 million judgment. Picture a Christmas stocking so heavy with cash, it can barely hang from the mantle. But this isn't a gift anyone would want to receive. Instead, it's a court-ordered penalty. A staggering sum that represents not just a financial setback, but a seismic event in the world of business and law. The $450 million figure isn't just a number, it's a symbol of accountability, a message sent loud and clear from the halls of justice to the boardrooms of America. For Donald Trump and his company, this is a stocking stuffer that comes with a bitter aftertaste, a reminder that actions have consequences and that even the most powerful are not above the law. Just before the holiday season, as the city of New York sparkled with festive lights, and the world prepared to celebrate, a judge in Manhattan delivered a ruling that would reverberate far beyond the courtroom. In a case that had been closely watched for months, the judge confirmed a massive, precedent-shattering financial penalty against Donald Trump and his company for fraud. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation, as the judge read out the decision. Legal experts and journalists scrambled to analyze the implications, while the public tried to grasp the sheer scale of the judgment. This was not just another lawsuit, not just another headline in a year filled with legal battles. This was a moment that would be remembered for years to come. A moment when the legal system flexed its muscle and sent a clear message about the importance of honesty, transparency, and accountability in business. For Donald Trump, the impact of this judgment is nothing short of catastrophic. This isn't a fine he can brush off with a wave of his hand or a clever tweet. It's a $500 million blow that threatens the very foundation of his business empire. Trump's real estate holdings, once symbols of power and prestige, now hang in the balance. The liquidity of his entire operation is at risk, as the judgment forces him to come up with an astronomical sum of money in a very short period of time. Financial analysts have described it as a potential existential crisis for the Trump organization, a moment when the future of the company and the legacy of its founder are thrown into doubt. The prospect of a fire sale looms large, with iconic assets like Trump Tower, luxury hotels, and golf courses potentially hitting the market at bargain prices. Wall Street is watching closely, as are rivals and allies alike, all wondering how Trump will respond to this unprecedented challenge. Will he find a way to weather the storm, or will this be the moment that marks the beginning of the end for one of the most famous business empires in the world? The $450 million judgment didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of a lengthy investigation and a high-profile trial that exposed a pattern of fraudulent behavior within the Trump organization. Prosecutors argued that Trump and his company had systematically inflated the value of their assets to secure favorable loans and insurance deals, deceiving banks, investors, and regulators in the process. The evidence presented in court was damning. Emails, financial statements, and testimony from former employees all painted a picture of a company willing to bend the rules to get ahead. The judge's ruling was clear and unequivocal. This was not just a case of creative accounting or aggressive business tactics. It was a deliberate and sustained effort to mislead and defraud, and it warranted a penalty commensurate with the scale of the wrongdoing. The public reaction was immediate and intense. Supporters of Trump decried the judgment as a politically motivated attack, while critics hailed it as a long overdue reckoning. Outside the courthouse, crowds gathered to voice their opinions, waving signs and chanting slogans. News outlets across the country broke into regular programming to cover the story, and social media lit up with hot takes and heated debates. For many, the case became a symbol of the broader struggle over truth, justice, and accountability in American society. Was this a fair and necessary punishment for wrongdoing, or an example of the legal system being weaponized against a political opponent? The answer, as always, depended on who you asked. Trump's legal team immediately vowed to appeal the decision, promising to fight the judgment all the way to the highest courts if necessary. In a fiery press conference, Trump's lawyers denounced the ruling as unfair and vowed to clear their client's name. Legal analysts, meanwhile, debated the likelihood of success on appeal, with some arguing that the evidence against Trump was overwhelming, while others suggested that the case could be tied up in the courts for years to come. The legal battle is far from over, and the outcome remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: the $450 million judgment has already had a profound impact, sending shockwaves through the business world and raising serious questions about the future of the Trump organization. As the dust settles and the holiday season continues, the fate of Trump's business empire hangs in the balance. The $450 million penalty is more than just a number. It's a test of resilience, a challenge to the very foundations of power and privilege in America. Will Trump find a way to pay the judgment and keep his empire intact, or will this be the moment when the house of cards finally comes tumbling down? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the story is far from over, and the world will be watching every step of the way. Second, the January 6th criminal charges care package. The special counsel's investigation wrapped up its findings with a bow, resulting in new, sweeping criminal indictments related to the attempt to overturn the 2020 election. These charges aren't political theater. They carry the very real threat of prison time, fundamentally changing the stakes of the 2024 election. Third, we come to the state ballot disqualification ornament, a symbol that has taken on a weighty significance in the 2024 election season. Imagine, if you will, a holiday tree not just adorned with twinkling lights and festive baubles, but also with the heavy metallic glint of legal battles and constitutional questions. This ornament, labeled State Ballot Disqualification, is not just a decorative piece. It's a marker of a pivotal moment in American democracy, one that has sent shockwaves through the political landscape and ignited passionate debates across the nation. The Colorado Supreme Court, in a move that captured national attention, became the first to hang what many have called the legal equivalent of a UAP. Welcome here sign on their electoral tree. The courthouse, usually a place of quiet deliberation, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight, its stately columns and festive wreaths serving as the backdrop for a decision that could reshape the course of the presidential race. The ruling was not just about one candidate or one state. It was a signal flare, a message to the rest of the country that the rules of the game might be changing, and that the boundaries of constitutional law were being tested in real time. The decision reverberated far beyond Colorado's borders. News outlets scrambled to cover the story, legal experts debated its implications on air, and citizens across the country found themselves asking, what does this mean for the future of our elections? The ruling was rooted in the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause, a rarely invoked provision that suddenly found itself at the center of a national conversation. The clause, originally crafted in the aftermath of the Civil War, was designed to prevent those who had engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States from holding public office. Now, more than 150 years later, it was being used as the basis for a decision that could keep a former president off the ballot. The Colorado Supreme Court's ruling stated unequivocally that Donald Trump, the former president and current Republican frontrunner, was disqualified from appearing on the state's Republican primary ballot under the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause. The justices argued that Trump's actions surrounding the events of January 6, 2021, constituted engagement in insurrection, and therefore, under the Constitution, he was ineligible to run for office. This was a bold and unprecedented move, one that immediately sparked both celebration and outrage, depending on which side of the political spectrum you stood. Supporters of the decision hailed it as a necessary step to uphold the rule of law and protect the integrity of American democracy. They argued that the Constitution must be enforced, even when it leads to uncomfortable or controversial outcomes. Opponents, however, saw the ruling as a dangerous overreach, an attempt to use the courts to settle political scores and disenfranchise millions of voters. The debate quickly spilled out of the courtroom and into the streets, with rallies, protests, and heated discussions dominating the news cycle. The impact of the Colorado decision was immediate and far-reaching. Other states began to consider similar actions, with activists and legal teams filing challenges in courts from coast to coast. Maps of the United States lit up with new battlegrounds. Not just the traditional swing states, but any state where the question of ballot access was now up for debate. Headlines blared about the possibility of a patchwork election, where the name of a major candidate might appear in some states but not others, raising questions about fairness, consistency, and the very nature of the democratic process. For the Trump campaign, the threat was existential. The possibility of being dismantled state by state before a single vote was cast loomed large. Campaign staffers watched the news with growing anxiety, strategists scrambled to respond to the shifting legal landscape, and supporters wondered whether their votes would even count. The uncertainty cast a long shadow over the primary season, as every new court ruling had the potential to change the trajectory of the race. The question on everyone's mind was simple, yet profound. In a democracy, who gets to decide who appears on the ballot? Is it the voters, the courts, or the Constitution itself? Historians and legal scholars weighed in, pointing out that the use of the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause in this context was virtually unprecedented. While the amendment had been cited in the past, never before had it been used to bar a major presidential candidate from the ballot. The debates in law schools and on editorial pages were fierce, with some arguing that this was a necessary evolution of constitutional law, while others warned of the dangers of setting such a precedent. The nation found itself at a crossroads, grappling with questions that cut to the heart of its identity and values. As the legal battles escalated, all eyes turned to the United States Supreme Court. Would the highest court in the land intervene to settle the issue once and for all? Would they uphold the Colorado decision, or strike it down and restore Trump's place on the ballot? The stakes could not have been higher, and the outcome would have profound implications, not just for the 2024 election, but for the future of American democracy itself. The nation waited, holding its breath, as the justices prepared to weigh in on a case that would be studied for generations to come. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans found themselves drawn into the debate. At town halls, in coffee shops, and around dinner tables, people discussed the implications of the ruling. Social media buzzed with arguments and opinions, as citizens tried to make sense of the rapidly evolving situation. For many, the question was not just about one candidate, but about the principles that underpin the nation's electoral system. Should the courts have the power to decide who can run for office, or should that decision rest solely with the voters? As the primary season approached, campaigns and voters alike braced for uncertainty. Volunteers worked the phones, urging supporters to turn out no matter what, while election officials prepared for the possibility of last-minute changes to the ballot. The sense of unpredictability was palpable, as everyone waited to see how the legal drama would unfold. In the end, the state ballot disqualification ornament was more than just a symbol. It was a reminder that the rules of democracy are not set in stone, and that every election brings new challenges, new questions, and new opportunities to define what it means to be a nation governed by the people, for the people. Fourth, the gag order as a Christmas carol. Multiple judges have imposed and upheld strict gag orders, silencing Trump's most powerful weapon, his public commentary. For a figure who, really defines himself through public diatribes, being legally muzzled in the middle of a campaign is, an infuriating strategic nightmare. Fifth, the defamation lawsuit lump sum. A separate civil defamation trial from writer E. Jean Carroll moved forward, where a jury already found him liable for sexual abuse. This new phase is solely to determine how many more millions he will have to pay her, adding financial insult to legal injury. Why he's furious. This coordinated confluence of legal setbacks represents an existential pincer movement. It's not one problem he can spin or bully. It's a simultaneous assault on his wealth, his freedom, and his political viability. The walls are closing in from all sides during a season meant for dominance and celebration, leaving him isolated, legally besieged, and boiling with rage. For a man who has built his entire public persona around the idea of being a winner, of always coming out on top, and of never backing down from a fight, the events of this year have been nothing short of extraordinary. Donald Trump, a figure who has dominated headlines for decades, is now facing a reality that few could have predicted just a few years ago. The man who once seemed untouchable, who reveled in the chaos he created and the unwavering loyalty of his supporters, now finds himself at the center of a legal storm that threatens not only his reputation, but his very future. As he steps outside the courthouse, his expression is a far cry from the confident, brash demeanor we've come to expect. There's a seriousness, even a hint of distress, etched across his face, a silent acknowledgement that the tides may finally be turning. This holiday season, a time usually filled with celebration, family gatherings, and the warmth of tradition, has instead become a masterclass in public humiliation and personal vulnerability for Trump. The contrast is striking. While millions decorate their homes and prepare for festivities, Trump is navigating a relentless barrage of legal challenges, each one chipping away at the image he's so carefully crafted. The festive lights and holiday cheer serve as a surreal backdrop to his somber appearances in courtrooms and news headlines. For a man who has always sought to control the narrative, to dictate the terms of engagement, this season has delivered a humbling lesson in the limits of power and the unpredictability of justice. The world watches as he faces consequences not in the court of public opinion, but in the halls of justice, where the rules are different and the stakes are higher than ever before. These moments of reckoning are being delivered not by political rivals or media adversaries, but by the very institutions Trump has spent years criticizing and at times attempting to undermine. The federal courts, the legal system, and the rule of law, these are the forces now holding him to account. The sight of his name on official legal documents, the gravity of the charges, and the solemnity of the courtrooms all underscore the seriousness of what's at stake. It's a powerful reminder that in the end, no one is above the law, not even a former president. The institutions he once dismissed as obstacles or enemies are now the arbiters of his fate, delivering a form of justice that is impartial, methodical, and, above all, inescapable. To truly grasp the full implications of this legal avalanche, and to understand what might come next for Trump, it's essential to look beyond the headlines and soundbites. The story unfolding is complex, with layers of legal, political, and social consequences that will reverberate far beyond this moment. Journalists and analysts are working tirelessly to piece together the facts, to connect the dots between court filings, witness testimonies, and the broader context of American democracy. Inside the courtrooms, judges and lawyers are engaged in a battle not just over Trump's future, but over the very principles that define the nation. The outcome of these proceedings will shape not only Trump's legacy, but also the future of the presidency, the rule of law, and the public's trust in democratic institutions. In times like these, it's more important than ever to seek out analysis that goes beyond the surface, that connects the dots and provides context for the events we're witnessing. The legal documents, the courtroom drama, the statements from lawyers and judges, all of these pieces form a puzzle that requires careful, informed interpretation. Our team is dedicated to bringing you that analysis, breaking down the complexities of the cases, explaining the significance of each development, and helping you understand what it all means for the country and for the world. We know that the stakes are high, and that the outcome of these legal battles will have far-reaching consequences. That's why we're committed to providing you with the most accurate, insightful, and timely information available. In a news cycle that moves faster than ever, it's easy to miss critical updates or to get lost in the noise of speculation and opinion. But this is a historic showdown, one that will be studied and debated for years to come. Every new headline, every court decision, every statement from the key players adds another layer to the story. That's why it's so important to stay informed, to make sure you don't miss a single update on this unprecedented legal and political drama. Whether you're following on your phone, your computer, or your television, staying connected to reliable sources is the best way to ensure you have the facts you need to make sense of what's happening. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, to be the first to know about breaking developments and in-depth analysis, now is the time to take action. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. By subscribing, you're not just supporting our work, you're joining a community of engaged, informed viewers who care about the future of our democracy. You'll get access to exclusive content, expert interviews, and detailed breakdowns of the most important stories as they unfold. And with the notification bell turned on, you'll be the first to know when new videos are released, ensuring you're always up to date on the latest twists and turns in this ongoing saga. And don't keep this crucial information to yourself. Share this video with your friends, family, and social networks to help spread awareness about what's really happening. In times of uncertainty and division, knowledge is power. By sharing reliable, fact-based reporting, you're helping to foster informed conversations and to counter the spread of misinformation. The more people who understand the stakes, the better equipped we'll all be to navigate the challenges ahead. So as you gather with loved ones this holiday season, take a moment to share this story, to discuss its implications, and to stay engaged with the issues that matter most. Together, we can ensure that the truth is heard, that justice is served, and that our democracy remains strong in the face of adversity. Thank you for watching, for subscribing, and for being a part of this important conversation. Stay tuned for more updates, and remember, history is being written right now, and you're a part of it.